The chamber was silent. 200 species sat in their designated seats waiting for the final report. Commander Velthar stood at the center platform, his insect-like body casting strange shadows under the bright lights. He held a data tablet in his lower arms while his upper arms gestured to the holographic display above. "The survey is complete," Velthar announced. His voice translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. Planet GC447 is officially classified as Class 5 uninhabitable. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Class 5 was the worst rating possible for a world in the habitable zone. It meant the planet was actively hostile to life. The hologram showed a blue and green world that looked deceptively peaceful from space. Velthar continued his report with clinical precision. Daily temperature variations reach 40 degrees. The atmosphere contains 21% oxygen, which is toxic to most species. Electrical storms occur every 3 days on average. The tectonic plates are highly unstable, causing frequent earthquakes and volcanic activity. The microbial life is aggressive and has proven fatal to multiple species. Another counselor, a floating jellyfish-like being named Koresh, added her observations. "My people attempted colonization 6 years ago. We lost 47 colonists in the first month. The temperature swings alone caused system failures in our equipment. The bacteria infected our food supplies. We evacuated after 8 weeks. A reptilian delegate from Centauri spoke next. We tried 3 years ago with better preparation. We brought advanced environmental suits and sealed habitats. A single earthquake destroyed our main facility. The aftershocks continued for weeks. 73 of our people died. The survivors developed respiratory problems from the high oxygen content. We left after 3 months." Velthar pulled up mineral survey data. "The planet contains rare earth elements worth approximately 14 trillion credits. However, the Council's official recommendation is permanent abandonment. No known species can survive there long term. The cost in lives is too high." The Council prepared to vote on the abandonment resolution. That was when a human stood up in the observer section. "Excuse me," the human said calmly. "May I address the Council?" Velthar's antennae twitched in surprise. "Captain Hune of Earth's exploration vessel. You have the floor." Captain Hune walked to the platform with steady confidence. She was a woman of average height with short black hair and calm dark eyes. She wore a simple uniform with minimal equipment. No environmental suit, no breathing apparatus, just cloth and leather. "Thank you, Commander," Hune said. "I've reviewed your survey data with my team. We would like to request colonization rights to GC447. The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. Velthar raised his arms for silence. "Captain, perhaps you misunderstood. This is a Class 5 uninhabitable world. 3 separate colonization attempts have failed with significant casualties. We cannot allow—" "We understand the risks," Hyun interrupted politely. "My crew of 200 volunteers is ready to establish a permanent mining colony. We've brought all necessary equipment and supplies." Koresh floated forward, her bioluminescent body pulsing with concern. "Captain Hyun, I must protest. The Koreshi are known for our adaptability, yet we could not survive there. Humans are a relatively new species to the galactic community. Your biology is still being studied. This would be suicide." Hyun smiled slightly. "I appreciate your concern. However, I believe there's been a misunderstanding about human tolerances." She pulled up Earth's data on the holographic display. "This is our homeworld. As you can see, Earth has temperature variations of up to 60 degrees in some regions. Our oxygen content is naturally 21%. We experience regular electrical storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and hurricanes. Our microbial life is incredibly diverse and competitive." Velthar studied the data with growing confusion. "Your planet is classified as Class 4 hazard world? How is this possible? How do humans survive?" "We evolved there," Hyun said simply. "What you call hostile conditions we call normal. Your survey of GC447 describes weather patterns similar to what we call camping season back home." A small furry delegate from the Paktar system stood on his seat. "Camping season? What is this?" "Recreation," Hyun explained. "Many humans enjoy visiting areas with variable weather, sleeping outdoors and hiking through challenging terrain. We find it relaxing." The chamber fell silent again, but this time the silence was different. It was the silence of beings trying to comprehend something completely outside their understanding. The Centauri delegate hissed softly. The electrical storms killed our power systems and started fires in our facilities. We use lightning rods, Hyun said. It's basic technology we developed thousands of years ago. We can redirect the electrical discharge safely. Some humans even study storms as a hobby. The temperature fluctuations, Koresh asked weakly. 15 degrees Celsius to 55 degrees? Hyun checked her tablet. That's light jacket weather to warm afternoon. Very comfortable, actually. Some of my crew were hoping for more seasonal variation. The earthquakes and volcanic activity? Velthar pressed. Hyun nodded to someone in the observer section. A human man stood up and walked forward. This is Junho, our chief engineer. He can explain our building techniques. Junho gave a respectful bow to the council. We've been building earthquake-resistant structures for centuries. It's standard procedure in many Earth regions. The volcanic activity is actually beneficial. We can use it for geothermal power. Very efficient and clean. And the bacteria? The Centauri delegate demanded. Our people died from infections. A woman in a white coat joined them on the platform. Dr. Sora, medical officer, she introduced herself. I've reviewed the bacterial samples from your reports. They're similar to many Earth microorganisms. The human immune system evolved to handle constant microbial threats. What was lethal to your people would likely be handled by our bodies within hours. We might not even notice exposure. Velthar's antennae drooped. This is unprecedented. You're saying that a Class 5 uninhabitable world is suitable for human colonization? More than suitable, Yun confirmed. It's actually easier than many places on Earth. No large predators in your survey. No extreme weather events like hurricanes or tornadoes. The gravity is 0.98 Earth standard, which is nearly perfect. Honestly, Commander, we've been looking for worlds like this. Most habitable worlds are too gentle for our equipment and training. Too gentle, Koresh repeated faintly. We tend to over-engineer things based on Earth standards, Junho explained. When we build for Earth conditions, everything else seems delicate. We'd rather have a challenge than risk becoming complacent. The council members looked at each other in confusion and growing disbelief. Finally, Velthar spoke. Captain Hyun, if your people truly wish to attempt this colonization, the council will not stop you. However, we strongly advise against it. The mineral rights will be granted, but we cannot guarantee any rescue operations if conditions prove too severe. Hyun smiled warmly. We won't need rescue, Commander. But we appreciate the concern. We'll send regular reports so you can monitor our progress. As the humans left the chamber, Koresh floated close to Velthar. They're going to die, she whispered. All of them. Velthar watched the humans walk away with steady, confident steps. Perhaps we've been measuring habitability by the wrong standards all along. The council voted to grant the colonization rights with zero opposition. After all, if the humans wanted to throw their lives away on an impossible world, who were they to stop them? The galaxy would learn from humanity's failure. At least that was what they thought. The transport ship descended through thick clouds that crackled with electrical energy. Inside the cockpit, Captain Hyun watched the lightning dance across their shields without concern. Behind her, 200 colonists checked their equipment and prepared for landing. Storm intensity increasing, the pilot reported. Winds at 120 kilometers per hour. Lightning strikes every 15 seconds. The Galactic Survey database says this is a catastrophic weather event. Hyun looked at the data and shrugged. Looks like a thunderstorm. Maybe some strong wind, nothing unusual. In the passenger bay, a young man named Minho checked his pack one more time. He had been chosen as the first colonist to step onto GC-447. It was an honor he took seriously, though he seemed remarkably relaxed about landing on a world that had killed so many others. Nervous? Asked Yuna, the woman sitting next to him. She was organizing medical supplies with practiced efficiency. A little, Minho admitted. But mostly excited. I grew up in the mountains back on Earth. This place reminds me of home according to the surveys. Landing in 60 seconds, the pilot announced. The Galactic Council had insisted on placing monitoring satellites around the planet. Dozens of species watched the landing from their safe, distant worlds. They expected to witness a disaster. Some had even placed bets on how long the humans would survive. The ship touched down with barely a shudder. Junho, the chief engineer, had chosen a flat area near mineral deposits. The ground was rocky and solid. Perfect for building. Atmosphere check complete, Dr. Sora announced from her station. Oxygen at 21%, nitrogen 78%, trace gases within acceptable ranges. Temperature is 15 degrees Celsius. Pressure is standard. Captain Hyun stood and addressed the colonists. Welcome to our new home. Remember, the galaxy thinks we're crazy for being here. Let's prove them right by making this work. The cargo bay doors opened. Rain swept in, along with wind and the smell of ozone from the lightning. The colonists didn't hesitate. They grabbed their equipment and started moving. Minho stepped out first. His boots hit the wet ground. He took a deep breath of the cool, fresh air and smiled. "This is perfect," he called back. "Smells like home after a storm." Across the galaxy, observers watched in confusion. No environmental suits, no sealed habitats. The humans were walking around in simple clothing, letting the rain hit their faces. Some were even smiling. Velthar watched from his ship in orbit, his antennae quivering with anxiety. They're not protected. The rain could carry harmful bacteria. The temperature will cause hypothermia. Why aren't they taking precautions? His science officer checked the readings again. "Commander, the human body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. The ambient temperature is 15 degrees. That's a difference of only 22 degrees. According to their physiology data, they can maintain homeostasis in much greater variations. But the Qureshi died from exposure in these exact conditions," Velthar protested. "The Qureshi maintain body temperature of 23 degrees, the science officer explained. 15 degrees caused fatal heat loss for them. For humans, it's merely cool." On the surface, the colonists worked with impressive efficiency. Teams spread out to mark building sites. Others began unloading heavy equipment from the cargo holds. Within an hour, they had established a perimeter and started assembling temporary shelters. Dr. Sora set up a field laboratory under a simple tarp. She collected samples of soil, water, and air. Through her microscope, she observed the bacteria that had killed Qureshi colonists. They were aggressive, certainly, but not unusual by Earth standards. "These are comparable to common Earth bacteria," she reported to Captain Hyun. "Our immune system should handle them easily. I'll monitor everyone for the first few weeks, but I don't anticipate problems." Junho directed the engineering teams with calm authority. They were building not just shelters but permanent structures. The foundation poles went deep into the bedrock. The buildings were designed to flex during earthquakes. Every structure had lightning protection built into the framework. "Why so much reinforcement?" asked a young colonist named Hana. She was a geologist excited about the planet's volcanic activity. "This is how we build on Earth," Junho explained. "We assume earthquakes will happen. We prepare for them. Better to overbuild than to have to rebuild." The storm that had been approaching during landing arrived in full force that afternoon. The galactic observers expected chaos. What they saw instead baffled them completely. The colonists had already predicted the storm's path using basic meteorology. They had secured all equipment and taken shelter in the newly constructed buildings. But they didn't seem worried. In fact, several colonists stood near the shelter entrances, watching the lightning with obvious enjoyment. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Minho said to Yuna as they watched the lightning bolt strike a rod they had installed. The electricity grounded harmlessly into the soil. "Reminds me of monsoon season," Yuna agreed. "I actually missed this on the ship. Space is too quiet." Inside the main shelter, someone had started a campfire in a designated fire pit. The smoke vented through a proper chimney. Colonists gathered around it, warming their hands and sharing stories. The contrast was surreal. Outside, a storm that had helped destroy the Zentori colony raged. Inside, humans roasted food over flames and laughed. Captain Hyun made her first report to the Galactic Council that evening. Her transmission was picked up by every major news network in known space. "Day 1 report from GC-447, she began. "All colonists healthy and accounted for. Base camp established. No casualties, no injuries, no equipment failures. We experienced a thunderstorm this afternoon. Some minor flooding in low areas, but nothing our drainage systems couldn't handle. Overall conditions are better than expected. The temperature is comfortable. The air is clean. The terrain is stable. We're calling this place New Haven, because that's what it feels like to us. A haven. Velthar listened to the report with growing disbelief. Conditions better than expected. It's a Class 5 death world. His science officer pulled up comparative data. Commander, I've been analyzing Earth's conditions. They have storms with wind speeds over 300 kilometers per hour. Temperature ranges from -60 to +55 degrees Celsius in different regions. They have volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, floods, droughts, and predators that hunt them. By their standards, GC447 is remarkably peaceful. That's impossible, Velthar whispered. No species evolves in those conditions. One did, sir. Humans did. Over the next several days, the human colony expanded rapidly. They worked through day and night in rotating shifts. The temperature variations that had killed other species barely slowed them down. When it cooled to 5 degrees at night, they wore jackets. When it warmed to 55 degrees during the day, they wore lighter clothing. Neither extreme affected their work. Dr. Sora completed her medical surveys and found 0 infections. The aggressive bacteria had indeed tried to invade human bodies, but the immune systems fought them off effortlessly. Most colonists never even knew they had been exposed. Hana, the geologist, was having the time of her life. She spent her days exploring the volcanic regions with a small team. They measured lava flows, studied mineral deposits, and mapped fault lines. To her, it was paradise. 3 active volcanoes within 20 kilometers, she reported excitedly to Junho. The geothermal potential is incredible. We could power the entire colony and still have energy to spare. By the end of the first week, New Haven had a power plant, water purification systems, residential buildings, and even a small greenhouse. The mining operations were ready to begin. Captain Hyun sent her weekly report with visible pride. Week 1 complete. Colony fully operational. Mining begins tomorrow. Morale is excellent. Several colonists have mentioned that conditions are almost too easy. They expected more of a challenge. We're considering this a successful establishment. Across the galaxy, species watched in stunned silence. The impossible was happening. Humans were not just surviving on GC447, they were thriving. The planet that had defeated 3 separate colonization attempts was being transformed into a home, and the humans were treating it like a camping trip. 3 months had passed since the humans landed on New Haven. The colony was no longer a collection of temporary shelters. It had become a town. Ambassador Nixall descended from his observation ship with a mixture of curiosity and concern. He was an aquatic species, requiring a mobile water tank to survive on land. His world was peaceful, with carefully controlled temperatures and minimal geological activity. The idea of living on GC447 horrified him. Yet here he was, sent by the Galactic Council to study the human anomaly. Captain Hyun met him at the landing pad. She wore practical work clothes and no protective equipment whatsoever. The temperature was 12 degrees and rain fell in a steady drizzle. She seemed completely unbothered. Ambassador Nixall, welcome to New Haven, Hyun said warmly. I hope your journey was comfortable. Thank you, Captain, Nixall replied through his translator. I must admit I am concerned about being here. My safety team insisted I bring emergency evacuation protocols. Hyun smiled. You're perfectly safe. We've had 0 serious incidents since arrival. Let me show you around. As they walked through the colony, Nixall's trained eyes took in everything. The buildings were solid and well constructed. Solar panels and wind turbines dotted the landscape. In the distance, he could see the geothermal plant that Junho had built near a volcanic vent. But what struck him most were the humans themselves. They walked around casually without environmental suits. Some wore light jackets. Others wore just simple shirts despite the cool, damp weather. Children played in a park area, laughing and running through puddles. The children, Nixall said slowly. They are outside. In this weather. Of course, Hyun replied. It's a nice day. Not too hot, not too cold. Perfect for outdoor activities. They passed a woman jogging along a marked trail. She wore shorts and a thin shirt, and she was covered in sweat despite the cool air. She waved cheerfully as she passed. That's Yuna, Hyun explained. She runs 10 kilometers every morning. Says it helps her think. In the rain? At 12 degrees? Nixel asked weakly. She prefers it when it rains, Hyun said. Says it keeps her cool during exercise. Nixal made careful notes in his data pad. Every observation seemed to contradict everything he knew about habitability requirements. Dr. Sora met them at her research facility. The building was warm inside, heated to what humans considered comfortable. To Nixal, it felt slightly cool, but his tank maintained his preferred temperature. Welcome, Ambassador, Sora said. I understand you're here to study how we've adapted to New Haven. Indeed, Nixal replied. The Galactic Council is then confused. 3 species failed to colonize this world. Yet humans are thriving. We need to understand why. Sora pulled up a holographic display showing human physiology. Let me explain our evolutionary advantages. Humans evolved on Earth, which is classified as a Class 4 hazard world. This classification exists because Earth is unusually dangerous by galactic standards. I've read the classification, Nixal said, but I don't understand how any species survive such conditions long enough to develop civilization. We didn't just survive, Sora explained. We adapted. Human bodies are incredibly efficient at thermoregulation. We can maintain our core temperature in environments ranging from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius. We sweat to cool down and shiver to warm up. Our metabolism adjusts constantly. She showed data comparing human immune systems to other species. We evolved alongside countless bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Our immune systems are like standing armies, constantly ready for invasion. What killed the Qureshi colonists was handled by our bodies automatically. Most of us never even felt sick. But the oxygen content, Nixal protested, 21% is toxic to most species. It's what we breathe naturally, Sora said. Our cells are designed to use it efficiently. In fact, any less oxygen and we'd feel tired and sluggish. Junho joined them for the next part of the tour. He took Nixal to see the colony's infrastructure. The ambassador was impressed despite his concerns. The power systems were robust and redundant. The water treatment facility could handle any bacterial contamination. The buildings were built to withstand earthquakes up to magnitude 7. This is standard Earth construction, Junho explained. Where I grew up, we had earthquakes regularly. You learned to build accordingly. Here we've actually reduced our safety factors because the seismic activity is less than what I experienced as a child. Less? Nixal repeated. The Zentori colony was destroyed by an earthquake. Magnitude 5.2, Junho said, checking his records. That's moderate by Earth standards. Frightening if you're not prepared, certainly, but manageable with proper engineering. Their buildings weren't designed for seismic activity. Ours are. They visited the mining operations next. Humans worked in teams, extracting rare minerals from deep within the planet. They wore basic safety equipment, hard hats, gloves, sturdy boots. But no environmental suits, no breathing apparatus. They were breathing the planet's air directly into their lungs. Isn't the dust dangerous? Nixal asked. We use masks for dust protection, a miner explained. Same as we would in any mine. But the air itself is fine. Clean, actually. Better than some industrial areas on Earth. That evening, Nixal attended a community dinner. The humans had built a large communal hall where colonists gathered to eat and socialize. The smell of cooking food filled the air. People laughed and shared stories. Children ran between tables while adults discussed their day's work. It was so normal. If Nixal didn't know better, he would think he was visiting any peaceful colony world. Not a Class 5 death planet that had killed dozens of colonists from other species. A young woman named Unji, who worked as a teacher, sat down next to him. Ambassador, I hear you're studying how we live here. Can I ask you something? Of course, Nixal replied. What do other species find so difficult about New Haven? I mean, I've read the reports, but I don't really understand what killed the other colonists. The weather seems mild. The geology is stable. The life is simple. What am I missing? Nixal stared at her. She was genuinely curious. She wasn't being sarcastic or cruel. She truly didn't understand what made this place deadly. The temperature variations, he said slowly. The Qureshi died from hypothermia. Their bodies couldn't maintain heat in these conditions. Yunji looked surprised. But it's never dropped below 5 degrees since we arrived. That's just cool weather, not cold. For you, Nixal emphasized. For them, it was fatal. Oh, Yunji said softly. I didn't realize. We had temperatures on Earth that dropped to -30. I guess I assumed everyone could handle basic cold. Nixal spent 3 weeks at New Haven. Every day brought new revelations about human adaptability. He watched Hana, the geologist, lead a field trip to an active volcano with a group of students. They got close enough to feel the heat from the lava. They collected samples from the edge of a lava flow. They treated it like a school excursion, not a life-threatening journey. He observed the colony during a minor earthquake. It was magnitude 4.1. Humans barely reacted. Some didn't even stop their conversations. The building swayed slightly and settled. No damage, no panic, just another day on New Haven. He interviewed colonist after colonist. Minho, who worked in agriculture, growing earth crops in New Haven's soil. Yuna, who had become the colony's fitness instructor, teaching people how to exercise in the local conditions. Taehyun, a pilot who flew supply runs through storms that would ground most species' aircraft. Every human had the same basic attitude. This planet was easy, comfortable, almost boring in its safety. On his last day, Nixal stood with Captain Hyun at the edge of the colony. Rain fell around them. Lightning flashed in the distance. A cool wind blew across the volcanic plains. "I need to know something," Nixal said. "Be honest with me, Captain. Do you really not see the danger here? Or have you just become accustomed to it?" Hyun thought about the question carefully. "I see challenges," she finally said. "Weather to prepare for, geological activity to monitor, microbes to study. But danger? Not really. This planet has never tried to kill us. It just exists. We're adapted to exist alongside it." "Earth must be terrifying," Nixal whispered. "Earth is home," Hyun corrected gently. "It made us who we are, strong, adaptable, resilient. New Haven is like a gentler version of Earth. It has most of the benefits, clean air, fresh water, useful geology, without some of Earth's more extreme challenges." "More extreme?" Nixal asked nervously. "What could be more extreme than this?" Hyun smiled. "Hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour. Tornadoes that tear buildings apart. Droughts that last years. Floods that cover entire regions. Predators that hunt humans for food. Diseases that kill millions. Ice ages that last centuries. And we survived all of it. We thrived through all of it." Nixal's tank bubbled with his distress. "Your species evolved in hell." "We evolved on Earth," Hyun said simply. "To us it's beautiful. New Haven is beautiful too. Different from Earth, yes, but beautiful in its own way." As Nixal's ship lifted off, he looked back at the colony. Lights twinkled in the growing darkness. Smoke rose from chimneys. He could see children playing in a park even as rain began to fall. The galaxy had rated this planet unlivable. The humans called it home. His report to the Galactic Council would change everything. The warning came 6 months after colonization began. Every weather satellite in orbit around New Haven lit up with alerts. A superstorm was forming, larger than any storm system the planet had produced in recorded history. Commander Velthar transmitted the data directly to Captain Hyun. His voice carried barely controlled panic. "Captain, you must evacuate immediately. This storm system is identical to the one that destroyed the Centauri colony. Wind speeds will exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Temperature will drop to -5 degrees. Electrical activity will be constant. You have 48 hours before it makes landfall." Hyun studied the data on her screen. Beside her, Junho and Dr. Sora reviewed the same information. Outside her window, the sky was already darkening. Clouds built on the horizon like approaching mountains. "Thank you for the warning, Commander," Hyun said calmly. "We'll begin preparations immediately." "Preparations?" Velthar's antennae quivered. "Captain, you don't understand. The Centauri had advanced environmental systems and hardened shelters. 40% of their colonists died. You must evacuate." "With respect, Commander, we're not evacuating. We're going to wait out the storm." Silence filled the communication channel for several seconds. Then Velthar spoke again, his voice strained. "Captain Hyun, I'm going to transmit the full records from the Centauri colony disaster. Please watch them. Please understand what's coming." The footage was difficult to watch. Centauri colonists had been caught in the storm 6 hours after it began. Their environmental suits had failed in the extreme conditions. Buildings had collapsed under the wind pressure. The colony's power grid had been destroyed by lightning strikes. Temperature inside their shelters had dropped below survivable levels. The survivors had evacuated on the second day, leaving their dead behind. Ambassador Nixal arrived in his ship within hours, having rushed from a nearby system. He practically begged Hyun to reconsider. "I've studied your people," he said. "I respect your adaptability. But this is beyond adaptation. This is a planetary-scale disaster. Please let us help you evacuate." Hyun placed a hand on his tank in a gesture of comfort. "Ambassador, I understand your concern, but look at the data through human eyes. Wind speeds of 200 kilometers per hour. We call that a Category 3 hurricane. We've survived much worse on Earth. Temperature of -5 degrees is cold, yes, but manageable with proper clothing and shelter. The lightning is dramatic, but we have protection. We've faced all of this before." "The Centauri died," Nixal protested. "Because they weren't prepared," Dr. Sora interjected gently. "Their environmental suits were their only protection. When those failed, they had nothing. We've built our colony to Earth standards. We don't rely on technology alone. Our buildings, our planning, our own bodies, all are designed for conditions like this." The colony moved into action with practiced efficiency. Junyo organized the engineering teams. Every building was reinforced. Emergency supplies were distributed. The geothermal power plant was secured with backup systems. Lightning rods were checked and reinforced. Water tanks were filled. Food stores were moved to protected areas. Minho worked with the agricultural team to secure the greenhouses. They brought sensitive plants inside the main buildings. The hardier crops were covered with protective barriers. "We'll probably lose some yield," he told Yuna. "But most will survive. Plants are tougher than people think." Yoonji, the teacher, gathered all the children and their families for a safety briefing. She explained what would happen in simple terms. The wind would be loud. The lightning would be bright. It might be scary, but they were safe inside the buildings. A small boy raised his hand. "Teacher Yoonji, is this like the big storm in the history books? The one that hit Korea?" "Similar," Yoonji confirmed. "But we're better prepared than people were back then. We have stronger buildings and better warning systems." "That's so cool," the boy said excitedly. "Can we watch from the windows?" Yoonji smiled. "For a little while during the safer parts. But when I say it's time to move away from windows, everyone listens. Understood?" The children nodded solemnly. Hana spent her time before the storm studying the geological data. She was particularly interested in how the pressure changes might affect the volcanic systems. "This is a fantastic research opportunity," she told Junho. "We'll gather so much data. Try not to go outside during the storm to collect samples," Unyo said dryly. "I make no promises," Hana replied with a grin. The storm arrived exactly when predicted. The wind built gradually, howling across the volcanic plains. Rain came in sheets so thick it was impossible to see more than a few meters. Lightning turned night into day every few seconds. The temperature dropped steadily. In the Galactic Council Observation Center, dozens of species watched the live feeds from New Haven. They expected to witness a tragedy. Rescue ships stood ready, though no one believed they could save everyone. Inside the colony's main hall, 200 humans waited. The building shook under the wind's assault but held firm. The power stayed on, fed by the geothermal plant. Heat circulated through the buildings, maintaining a comfortable temperature inside. Someone had built a fire in the central fireplace. Not for warmth. The heating system handled that, but for atmosphere. Colonists gathered around it, sharing food and stories. Children played quiet games. Adults monitored weather stations and building integrity sensors. Captain Yun made regular reports. Hour 6 of the storm. All colonists accounted for. All buildings secure. Power at 100%. No injuries. Some minor damage to external equipment, but nothing critical. Morale is good. Velthar listened to each report with growing disbelief. How is this possible? The Centauri were dying by hour 6. The Centauri were in environmental suits in damaged shelters, his science officer replied. The humans are in insulated buildings with multiple redundant systems. And they're wearing their cold weather clothing. Cold weather clothing? The science officer showed him footage from inside the colony. Humans wore thick jackets, warm pants, and insulated boots. It was clothing, just cloth and synthetic materials, but it was enough. The storm's peak hit during hour 20. Wind speeds reached 230 kilometers per hour. Lightning struck almost continuously. The temperature dropped to -7 degrees. This was the point where the Centauri colony had lost its first shelter. New Haven's buildings groaned and swayed, but held. Junio watched the structural integrity monitors with satisfaction. "Performing exactly as designed," he said. "We've got capacity for much worse." "How much worse?" Yuna asked. "These buildings could handle a magnitude 6 earthquake or sustained winds up to 300 kilometers per hour. Junho replied. "We build for worst-case scenarios." One lightning strike hit particularly close, making the lights flicker. The children gasped. Then the backup power kicked in seamlessly, and someone started singing. Others joined in. Within minutes, the entire hall was filled with singing. Human voices raised against the storm's fury. Ambassador Nixal listened to the audio feed with tears in his eyes. "They're singing," he whispered. "In the middle of a disaster, they're singing." By hour 30, the worst had passed. The wind was decreasing. The lightning became less frequent. Temperature began to rise. The storm was moving on. Captain Hyun made her assessment. Damage report: some solar panels damaged. One greenhouse partially collapsed. Minor flooding in low areas. 2 people with minor cuts from flying debris, already treated. Otherwise, we're intact. We'll begin cleanup and repairs as soon as conditions allow. Belthar's voice was faint. "No casualties?" "No casualties," Hyun confirmed. "Commander, I told you we'd be fine." When the storm finally cleared after 48 hours, the colonists emerged. The landscape was transformed. Trees were down. Debris was scattered everywhere. But the colony stood. Every major building was intact. The infrastructure worked. Minho surveyed the damaged greenhouse with a philosophical expression. "Could have been worse. We'll have it rebuilt in a week." At higher elevations, the rain had fallen as snow. Children who had never seen snow on New Haven rushed up the hills, laughing and playing. They built snowmen and had snowball fights. Their parents took pictures. Yoonji led a group of students on a post-storm nature walk, studying how the environment had changed. She pointed out where water had carved new channels. She showed them plants that had bent under the wind but not broken. "Nature is resilient," she taught them. "So are we." Hana got her wish. She collected samples throughout the storm's aftermath, documenting everything. Her report would become required reading for human geology students. Tai Hyun, who had stayed grounded during the storm, took the first flight afterward. He did a complete aerial survey of the colony and surrounding area. His report confirmed what everyone already knew. New Haven had weathered the storm with minimal damage. That evening, the colonists gathered again in the main hall. This time it was a celebration. Someone had made a cake. Someone else had brewed beer from local grain. They toasted their survival, their home, and each other. Captain Yun raised her glass. "To New Haven. May it always be this easy." The colonists laughed and cheered. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence. The impossible had happened again. Humans had survived a storm that had killed 40% of the previous colonists. They had survived it with 0 casualties, 0 serious injuries, and now they. 8 months after the storm, Ambassador Nixal stood before the full Galactic Council. His report was ready. It would change everything the galaxy knew about habitability and the species called humanity. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every major species had come to hear about the human anomaly. The story of New Haven had spread across the galaxy. A Class 5 uninhabitable world was now home to thriving human colony. The species that should have died had instead prospered. Nixal activated his presentation. The holographic display showed Earth rotating slowly in space. Beautiful, blue and green, peaceful from a distance. "Members of the Council," Nixal began, "I have spent 3 months studying the humans on New Haven. What I discovered has forced me to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about planetary habitability. The truth is simple and terrifying. We have been measuring habitability by our standards. Humans evolved by different standards entirely." He pulled up Earth's classification data. Earth is classified as a Class 4 hazard world. This is not an error. Let me explain what this means. The display showed Earth's temperature map. Earth experiences temperature variations from -60 degrees Celsius in polar regions to +55 degrees in desert areas. Humans have established permanent settlements in both extremes. They survive and thrive across a temperature range of over 100 degrees. A Velthari counselor interrupted. "That's impossible. No biological organism can maintain function across such variations." "Humans can," Nixal said simply. "Their bodies regulate temperature through multiple systems. They sweat to cool down, releasing water through their skin. They shiver to generate heat through muscle action. Their metabolism adjusts constantly. They use clothing as adaptive environmental protection. These mechanisms allow them to inhabit nearly every climate zone on their planet. He showed footage of humans in different Earth environments, scientists in Antarctic research stations, nomads in the Sahara Desert, sailors on stormy oceans. They don't just survive these places. They work in them. They raise families in them. They consider them home. The next section addressed atmospheric conditions. Earth's atmosphere is 21% oxygen. We classify this as toxic because most species experience oxidative damage at these levels. Humans don't. Their cells are designed to use high oxygen efficiently. Their antioxidant systems are remarkably robust. What poisons most of us is required for them to live. Dr. Sora had provided detailed biological data. Nixal displayed it now. The human immune system is unlike anything we've encountered. Earth hosts millions of species of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Many are harmful. Humans evolved alongside all of them. Their immune systems are in constant warfare, defeating invaders that would kill most species within hours. He showed microscopic footage of human white blood cells attacking bacteria. This happens inside every human every day. They call it having a healthy immune system. By our standards, they live in a permanent state of biological siege. A Qureshi delegate spoke up. But surely the storms, the earthquakes, those are beyond biological adaptation. Nixal nodded. You would think so. Let me show you what humans consider normal weather. The display showed a hurricane approaching Earth's coast. This storm has sustained winds of 300 kilometers per hour, storm surge of 8 meters, rainfall of half a meter in 24 hours. Humans have developed early warning systems, building codes, and evacuation procedures. They've learned to predict, prepare, and survive storms that would destroy most of our cities. He showed footage of tornadoes, typhoons, and blizzards. Each one would be classified as a catastrophic disaster on most council worlds. Humans dealt with them routinely. The storm that hit New Haven, the one that destroyed the Centauri colony, registered as a Category 3 hurricane by human standards. Serious, yes. Deadly potentially, but manageable with proper preparation. Humans call it bad weather, not unsurvivable conditions. The geological data came next. Earth has active plate tectonics. Earthquakes occur daily. Volcanic eruptions are common. Tsunamis strike coastal regions. Humans have adapted to all of it. They build flexible structures that sway with earthquakes. They monitor volcanoes and evacuate when necessary. They've built entire cities on fault lines and learned to survive there. Nixal showed footage from New Haven during the recent earthquake. A magnitude 5.2 that would have been devastating to most colonies. The humans barely reacted. Some didn't even stop their conversations. I asked Captain Hyun what humans would consider truly uninhabitable. Nixal continued. Her list was surprisingly short. Extreme radiation levels. No liquid water. Atmosphere too thin to breathe or too thick to move in. Gravity too high or too low for human biology. Temperatures consistently outside their adaptation range, which, remember, spans over 100 degrees. He paused, letting this sink in. By human standards, most Class 3 and Class 4 worlds are simply challenging. Class 5 worlds like New Haven are livable with preparation. We've been abandoning worlds that humans see as colonies waiting to happen. A Centauri delegate stood up, hissing in agitation. Are you suggesting that humans are simply better than us? Superior? No, Nixal said firmly. I'm suggesting that humans are different. They evolved in conditions that would kill most of us. This isn't superiority, it's adaptation. Humans have their own vulnerabilities. They require more food and water than many species. They sleep for a third of each day. They're fragile in many ways, but in terms of environmental tolerance, they are extraordinary. He showed the New Haven colony as it stood today. 2,000 humans now live on a world we declared uninhabitable. They have families. They have schools. They have parks where children play. They're mining rare minerals and sending them across the galaxy. They're not suffering. They're not barely surviving. They're building a civilization. Captain Hyun appeared on the display via live transmission. She had been invited to address the council remotely. She stood in New Haven's town square. Behind her, colonists went about their daily business. Children played. Adults worked. Life continued normally on a supposed death world. Members of the council, Hyun said, I understand our success on New Haven has caused confusion. Let me be clear, we're not trying to prove anything. We're not trying to show superiority. We're simply living on a world that suits our biology. To us, New Haven is comfortable. Perhaps even a bit mild compared to Earth. A counselor asked, Captain Hyun, do you fear nothing? Hyun smiled slightly. We fear plenty. We fear hurting each other. We fear failing our children. We fear losing what we love, but we don't fear weather or geology or microbes. We evolved alongside those things. They're part of our world. We learn to work with them, not against them. Another counselor spoke up. What about Earth? If New Haven is mild, what is Earth like? Earth is home, Hyun said simply. It's beautiful. It's challenging. It shaped who we are. Yes, it has dangers. Yes, it can kill us if we're careless. But it also gave us everything we needed to become who we are today. We don't resent Earth's harshness. We're grateful for it. It made us strong. The questions continued for hours. The council wanted to understand how humans thought, how they survived, what they needed. Hyun answered patiently, often joined by other colonists who offered their perspectives. Dr. Sora explained human medicine and biology. Junyo discussed engineering and construction techniques adapted from Earth. Yoonji talked about raising children in challenging environments. Each human offered a piece of the puzzle. By the end of the session, the council had reached several conclusions. First, the habitability classification system needed revision. What was uninhabitable for most species might be perfectly suitable for humans. Second, humans represented a valuable resource for the galaxy. There were abandoned worlds rich in minerals and resources that humans could colonize. Third, humanity needed to be understood, not feared. Ambassador Jisoo, Earth's official representative to the council, stood to make a final statement. She was an elegant woman with sharp intelligence and diplomatic grace. The council has asked what humanity wants from this situation, Jisoo said. The answer is simple: partnership. We don't seek to replace other species or claim superiority. We seek to contribute. There are worlds you can't inhabit. Let us try. There are conditions you find deadly. We might find them manageable. There are resources you can't reach. Perhaps we can, she smiled warmly. Humanity comes from a harsh world. We survived because we learned to work together, to help each other, to build communities in difficult places. We offer these skills to the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. The vote was unanimous. Humans would be granted survey rights to 15 worlds previously classified as uninhabitable. They would be offered contracts for work in hazardous environments. They would be recognized as specialists in extreme conditions. Velthar, who had been so certain humans would die on New Haven, approached Nixel after the session. I was wrong, he said quietly. I thought they were reckless or ignorant. I didn't understand that they were simply measuring risk by different standards. We all were wrong, Nixel replied. We assumed our limitations were universal. Humans have shown us that adaptability takes many forms. They're not beta.